idea that Adam Rubin is here. Look, my nipples are pretty much normal. I think he did a spit take off camera. Here he is, the one and only. You know him, you love him. You probably don't know him, hence you don't love him yet, but you will by the end of this. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Dave.
Is that a reproduction Mighty Cheese, or did you pay big bucks, or did you get it early before it was expensive? What's the deal on that poster?
So this is this poster belongs to Derek Delgadio and Vanessa Delgadio.
Oh, they don't have room in their little mouse hole. Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to have a huge, before I moved to Spain, in my apartment in New York, I had this dominating 3-sheet Carter, Weird Wonderful Wizard poster.
Oh, wow.
And Keller, I'm sorry, Weird Wonderful Wizard poster.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting because it hasn't been in my house for like 6 years now. It's living in my friend's house.
Oh, so you guys are like swapping, babysitting each other's posters. That's so nice.
When you have a tiny apartment, sometimes
you're in New York. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And this poster will not fit in certain rooms. Like the ceiling is too low in certain rooms in my house. But
I live in an old, I can't move my camera, schoolhouse here. And see if I can turn this a little bit. I don't know. And it's like a 13-foot ceiling. So I was able to get that.
Oh, man, that's exactly the
Carter.
Poster. It is a Carter poster. What am I talking about?
It is a Carter, yeah.
I'm guessing myself here.
I don't know. But anyway, now I'm out of focus. See what happens? Oh, there we go. But yeah, Mike Caveney goes, I sold that to you too cheap because I got it from him many, many years ago, like when he first got the Carter collection and stuff. He goes, I want it back. I sold it too cheap. I go, no, it's mine. Okay, you can have it back, but it's staying in my house. I don't care who owns it. But that's the beautiful thing about this. It's like, okay, I'll be your gallery wall.
Yeah. Yeah, right. As long as you get to enjoy it, who owns it is sort of immaterial.
Exactly, until it comes time to sell it.
That said, I've been keeping a pretty close eye on this Ricky J auction that's coming up, and the Klosterman.
Yeah, I just got the note about that. And Klosterman.
Luckily,
I have no money, so my wife is happy that we're poor now because otherwise we'd be poor again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and see. They're exhibiting all the items in New York for a couple of days, so I'm gonna go and visit and see them in person, and I might be able to get out to Chicago to see some of that stuff once they get it back to Potter and Potter. But did you ever visit the Salon de Magie? Did you ever go down the mine shaft and see?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm just an hour from where Ken lived. And
is that right?
Oh yeah, I live in Yellow Springs, Ohio, so I'm an hour from Cincinnati.
Oh,
yeah. And so I used to go down there and see his stuff and the wonderful. And a funny story, because my son went with me once, and I think Ben was 9 at the time, and I thought this is going to be so cool for him,
Yeah.
He freaked out once, Ken does this whole thing about these mines were dug by, whatever, I forget the story, Aztec something, and they found ruins, and we're going to go deep underground, and we pump air down. He's got this whole thing. Of course, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just close the door, and this rock wall just rotates, and it gives a great illusion of going down. And Ben freaked out, and Ken goes, all right. He just opened the door and walked into the theater, It's like, all right, darn it. We were all looking forward to having this 9-year-old experience this magical moment. Ben wasn't up for it.
Claustrophobic.
Yeah, it was too bad. But anyway, yeah, Ken was great. Well, Ken always had the big presidential suite at the Magi Fest. So all the big parties were at his room. So I was the little dormouse. I would sneak in with all the acts and all the big, older guys and just watch the shenanigans. And Ken's always had the good suite, And I just remember some of the crazy things that happened. But that'll be an amazing collection too. I'm not really. Are you a historian or are you a collector? Or do you
love this. I spent a lot of time with Gabe Fahuri when I was in Chicago. We lived a few blocks from each other. We're really good friends, and so I think through osmosis.
How long were you there?
I lived in Chicago for 7 years.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I was doing a lot of stuff at the Annoyance Theater, and I was working at Leo Burnett, and then I moved back to New York after.
That's right. I remember Carney talking about when he went down to Galena for the summer, he would go up to visit you when he went crazy.
Yes.
Things like that. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, John Carney. What a guy.
We could talk about John Carney for an hour if you want.
We could. We definitely could.
I would love that.
Well, there's so much to talk about. I always like to hear your stories from the back in the day because that's the funny thing about a small little community is you get to watch time pass and then you look back and see yourself right as you were 40 years ago.
Absolutely. I was
And
that kid. I go to these conventions, I see these kids, and I go, that was me and my buddies following around Roger Klaus or Skinner or somebody like that. And Danny Garcia walks in the room and all the 12-year-olds get excited. It's
yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
so great. I know exactly what they're feeling.
yeah, but nothing. It doesn't stink of cigarettes anymore, and there's got to
Stinks
be
of
a lot.
other things. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been rereading a bunch of old classic magic books on through the pandemic. We've had this little magic book club, and we've been discussing like
Oh,
greater
wonderful.
magic. Now we're
Yeah.
reading to the books of wonder, and Tommy has these essays in there. He talks a little bit about the community and how it's one big happy family, and how he thinks that's potentially detrimental. And you've heard Max Maven talk about like somebody comes up to him and they act
Yeah.
like they're peers, and and for a while it was sort of flat like that. But in a weird way, social media has kind of widened that gulf again, so that there's a quantification of how popular or how influential you
Oh, I
are.
see what you're saying. It's
You
a
know,
numbers
and
game.
it's a weird numbers game, right? And I wonder if that has in a way kind of humbled some of the beginners to realize these guys are masters in using the most irrelevant metric ever, but there's still a little bit of this like humility. Whereas I know in the 80s and the 90s, the Magic Club, like the guy would walk up with his like tipping ain't just a city in China, and you'd walk up to Tommy
Yeah.
Wonder and be like, hey, we're the same.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
equals. I don't know. You would know
I don't
better than
know.
me.
I don't know about all that. I mean, I don't think of it in those terms because I do think of it as one big happy family because I'm romantic like that. It's a dysfunctional family, and some family members you're a little nervous to walk up to. It's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I kind of see that. I remember Max was very controversial when he kind of came out with that. I mean, it made sense to a point. But it's
Well,
like, well, if you don't want people to come up to you, don't go to magic conventions, first of all.
that's a very fair point. That's a very fair point. And I think it's got to be bewildering from either end. I have the advantage in that I go to a magic convention, I can kind of like hover on the periphery. Somebody
Yeah.
like you or Michael
Well, I still
Carbonaro.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I know.
it,
Well, I
you
used to
know,
be able to sneak into magic conventions. I mean, for many years, I never paid to go to Magi Fest or IBM. We'd show up and we'd see what badges they were wearing. We'd borrow one, go to a coffee shop, or have a little art kit. And
uh-huh.
I didn't pay for years until I got a little notoriety or won a contest, and they're like, "Oh, Williamson, damn it,
You're not so good at blending in. I mean,
I'm
like
tall. I'm like
you're
Sasquatch
conspicuous.
tall." Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
very conspicuous these days, so it's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I always admired the way that every time I've seen you at any sort of convention, that you are just as generous with Ben Earl as you are with some kid that just learned how to do a biddle grip, and I always
Well, to me,
admired
Ben
that.
Earl is that kid. I mean, come on, let's be honest.
Yeah.
They're all
Well,
punk
but
kids to me
you
at this
seem to
point.
take like real joy in
Well, I
just the
do
little like
because
the
that
nuances.
was my joy. That was my happy place, hanging around. Those little sucker fish that hang around sharks and they just kind of follow them around like that, eat all the plankton off them, whatever the hell they're doing.
Uh-huh.
That was me at magic conventions. I would follow Goshman or Jay Marshall or these. It was these. I called them my crazy uncles. They were old men. They were in their 60s, and I was a teenager, and they fascinated me because they
Yeah.
didn't give a shit anymore about what people thought about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But they were just gave freely of themselves, and Carol Fox and people like that. And I just loved them. And I followed them around like a little fish everywhere I went. And it was just so much fun because they were silly men. They were full of gags and stories and advice. And, in the middle of giving some sermon about, something serious, Jay Marshall's teeth would fall into his glass of water while he's talking, just to crack us up. And water would shoot out of my nose. I was like, I just want to be that guy someday. And when I hit 60, I finally had this epiphany. I go, I'm 60. Finally, I wanted to be an old man in magic and go down to the casino and buy pajamas like Jay Marshall and just not care. And treat the kids bad and you say anything you want, but with love. But those guys were always teasing me, but it was with the grandfatherly love.
Yeah. There is something so special about an old man that can be silly.
Yeah, it really is. It's appealing because it's the clown who can be poignant, and it's even more poignant when a clown stops and says something, truth.
Is there anything in your? I mean, I've seen you perform many times, but I haven't ever seen you at a Disney cruise. Though I am tempted to go on a cruise in the first place, and the Disney cruise. specifically just to see you do.
Well, I think I'm done with Disney cruises. That won't happen anymore. But I don't think I'll go
Really?
back on a cruise ship. I don't know. This post-pandemic, I don't know if I want to get back on that petri dish.
I just want to see you do that princess bit so bad.
That was fun. That was
I really want to
that was the
see.
most fun I had. Yeah.
Is there a part of your show that's like the part where
Wait.
you're like, no, but seriously, this is the thing I want to tell you. Like, this is the line that I sneak in here. It's all fun and games, but also this is truth.
Here we go. Oh, is there a moment I say that? There were a couple moments like that when we hit the Illusionists hit um, the West End back in 2017, 2018, whatever it is. I was fortunate to be in the cast. And I just, because I love London, I've been going there since I was in my early 20s. And just to be in a West End theater, the Shaftesbury Theater, for 6 weeks, it was a dream come true. I mean, I told all my friends in the UK, it's like, if a double-decker bus hit me tomorrow, I'll die happy. That was so much fun. These beautiful old theaters full of history. And to have these audiences come out over the holidays, because we didn't do long runs, we come in for the holiday, make a lot of money, break records. The Illusionists, those guys are marketing geniuses. They take these empty theaters, rent them out for a couple months, and make a lot of money. Anyway, um, I was just so overwhelmed being there and in that spotlight. And I do a bit with the kids, where the raccoon and the bucket and all that. And I sat down on the floor with a kid once, and we just started talking. I don't know what, I had this little moment at the end where I go, I want you to, the old gag, put this under your pillow and all that stuff. But we got veered off of that script, and we just started talking. And I looked at him, and he reminded me of my son at that age. He was like a little 5 or 6 year old boy, very sweet. And I almost got teared up because the conversation went into a real place, because I said, how old are you again? 5 years old. And I said something along the lines of like, wow, you're going to have an you're 5 years old now, but, you're going to have an amazing life, as you grow up. Many, many, many amazing and magical things are going to happen in your life, And I'm thinking about my son, all the magical things that happened in his life that I got to witness, and some of the things I didn't get to witness because I was gone and so forth. And I looked at the guy in the front row, and I go, you're an old man. It's true, isn't it? It's an amazing life. And everybody laughed. I go, it's very old. Not that you're going 1 foot in the grave. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, tell the child that it is an amazing life. And,
Yeah.
magic is real, because there are
Yeah.
things. And I had this little thing, and it just came out so perfectly that night in front of an audience in my favorite place at Christmas time. And boy, it really was powerful. You could hear a pin drop. And my friend Richard McDougall, I don't know if you know Richard in London, but anyway, he was like, when did you write that beautiful speech? I go, just now. I didn't. He goes, I remember every word. I'm going to write it down for you because I want you to say this every night, if that was truly, because that was the most authentic thing I've heard on this stage, the whole show. So things like that. It's like, okay, I can do that. And now I'm more open to that. And now I search for these truth nuggets and these moments that are authentic rather than just constantly being scripted gags, And I'm old enough now that I'm more comfortable in my own skin now, that I can just sit and talk to a kid or an adult or something about something other than what's going on stage. And I think people go, oh, we're talking about other things, and they like that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well,
What do you?
I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
don't want
that.
to talk about me. I want to talk about you.
Well, I don't know who's watching this, but I don't know if they'd
I
agree
don't know
with you.
even nobody.
I,
How?
I I do think that plays into what you're talking about this powerful contrast between a silly old man, because they've had all these experiences. Life is hard. They're
Yeah.
grizzled and gray, and yet they still have a levity and an optimism and a willingness to look foolish that
And
is.
dementia.
Yeah,
They're more
yeah,
childlike. Isn't it wonderful? Well,
yeah. They
it's
like
an illness.
candy. Uh, they
They
like
poop their
ice cream and
pants. Yeah,
candy.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you grow up, Adam?
I grew up in Rockland County, which is not too far from Brooklyn.
Oh,
It's like over the river and through the
did you
woods,
do like
literally.
Tannins and Tannins Magic
Yeah,
Camp and all
yeah,
that
I did
stuff?
tannins. I started. I mean, for tannins, I was kind of late. I think my first year I was 14 or 15, which some of those guys start, like Noah Levine. I think he started when he was 9 or 8,
Yeah.
going to tannins, and I've known him since back then. And I was really lucky because there was
Did you come up with a great group?
such a great group. And now in New York, some of the people that are working and doing some incredible shows around the town, I've known them for most of my life.
Right.
So it's
Was
such a
Steve Cohen
cool.
was ahead of you, right? Steve and
Steve's a bit older than me. Yeah, Steve's a bit older than me, and Blaine's like I'm 38 now,
Blaine
so I
came
think.
through with like a Carbonaro, and I was talking
Yep,
to Derek Hughes, and
yep. So
that
those
group
guys
came
were
up together.
counselors.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
I
right.
didn't know
Were
Blaine
they
at 10.
counselors when you were there?
Yeah, Hughes was a counselor. Hughes was a huge inspiration to me. I mean,
Oh,
I would not be performing like in comedy clubs if it weren't for Derek Hughes, because I was a close-up guy. Like I was doing walk
yeah,
around. That was my thing forever. And then I saw him and I was thinking, man, because when I went to Chicago, when I went to college and I went to Chicago, high school, I was Magic Rubin. Like that was my thing. That was my identity. And
sure,
then when I went to college, I said, let me just see who am I without this whole thing. And
right,
then I started getting back into performing, but without the magic.
right.
And then in Chicago, I was really performing a lot, comedy, straight comedy and improvisation, but and like doing plays and stuff. And I felt weird about bringing the magic back in. I was like, oh, people are gonna think it's cheesy.
Yeah,
Nobody likes magic. Like it's for kids, and I don't want them.
and that was be in the '90s,
This was
in the
that's
early
how you felt in the
2000s.
'90s.
No, no, I'm saying when was that? In the early 2000s, I guess.
That was like early 2000s, like 2005. I moved to, or 2006. I moved to Chicago,
Okay,
and I would think about Derek, and I would think about Matt King, and I would think about you, and I would think about Harry Anderson, and I started to think maybe there's a way for me to be me
yeah,
and do magic and be funny in a way that's legitimate to me and is not like
right.
making fun of the spectators or using other people's
Doing the
jokes or
hacky stuff, yeah.
yeah. And I think that is true. I think you can do it. It's just super fucking hard. So
It's hard. That's exactly the point. Yeah, it is hard. Uh,
it's
you
really
know,
hard.
it's the challenge, but it's the opportunity. That's what I keep telling people. It's like it's like you have an opportunity here to make
Yeah.
this your own, to take this trick from this download this trick, whatever, and make it your bitch. You have this opportunity, but it's also a challenge. It goes
Yeah.
hand in hand.
I,
There's a risk, but there's a reward. Do it
it
though.
is it
It's
is
worth
so
it.
rewarding. I think a successful magic performance fills me with more satisfaction and joy than a successful comedy performance or any sort of presentation or acting in a role, because I know I've warped reality for these people. I have like we were talking about, this is a way to say to people, hey, the world is an amazing place.
Yeah,
It's really easy with magic to say me, look at me, I'm the best, I'm so smart. But
right.
I think if you do it right, look, everybody's got their own how they want to approach it. But for me, when I do it right, people come away thinking, wow, the world is a more magical place than I thought. And
Wow,
that's
that's the goal, right?
that's the goal, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I would think so.
And now I'm going to start saying to 30 somethings in comedy clubs in Brooklyn, like, hey, a lot of magical things are going to happen to you in your life. And you don't mind if I take that,
Yeah, go ahead.
right?
How old are you? 35? As you grow up and get older.
Yeah, right. And as you grow up, so many amazing
As you
things.
approach 42.
Right.
Many,
Yeah.
many, many. Uh,
No, but it was you had the Magi Fest, and we've talked about this in the past, and the get together, and for me it was Magic Camp.
yeah.
Um, that was definitely, and it's still like I can't wait for it to come back. I've been teaching there for however many years since I've been a camper there, and I've met so many great
So,
people.
when we
And
were at Abbott's, you and I were at Abbott's together this last
yeah,
one, and there was a ceremony with togas and an anointment in the lake, and I don't know if that was a
mhm.
punishment or reward. I don't know if
I'm
that was
not
an
sure either.
initiation or somebody was leaving
Yeah,
the tribe. I'm not sure what was happening. I think there was alcohol and other substances involved in that evening, but it was fun. It was like this reminds me of something a camp counselor might do at a
yeah,
camp, or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotta give a lot of credit to Alex Boyce for that weird happening. It was my birthday present
But
to him.
that's what I miss about magic
Yeah,
conventions because they've become a little too, I don't know, PC or something. It's like I did a gag at Magi Fest, and an old trick pie in the face with a dad and a kid or something, and then I got these 20 somethings going, do you think that the father really enjoyed having the pie in his? I don't give a shit. That was to make people. I thought it was, it was
you know,
like, oh, it's a magic convention. We're in a bubble. Let's not.
Hey, there's been sticks in the mud in every
Yeah.
generation. And in the 50s, it was the people that that's not appropriate, smoking their cigarettes with their kid in their arms and like, you can't be saying words like that. And there's always the people that are now it's kind of flipped and they're like, I'm
Yeah.
so advanced that I'm conservative, but
Yeah.
I don't want to get into
I don't
those
want to
deep.
get into that either, but it
Yeah,
was
let's
like
not do that.
I
Let's
was
not do
like,
that.
oh, am I the old hack doing get I'm the grandpa
Hey, look,
now, and the
I
millennials are like, David, yeah, he's not.
no, they're missing it. If that's fine, that's fine. Not everything's for everybody though. I think you
That's true.
probably I would argue that you may be the most universally beloved and respected magician
I would
in
argue
our
that too. I think that's true,
yeah, I
except in
think
this
that's true. I
house.
think that's true. And I always think about you as like lightning in a bottle. And one of the
When did this
crucial, like
become
one of the
about
most,
me?
yeah, more about you. So you were talking about Magi Fest, so this is what jogged my memory. It wasn't the pie in the face, but you had a kid come up and you just kind of walked him through a routine, and it was just it was like watching a tornado and all the thing. It was so great to see,
I
and
love chaos.
yeah,
And it's fun. You try to get something to happen, don't you? Sometimes that thing doesn't happen. And that's what people, it's like a psychic. People remember the hits, but
right,
hopefully they forget all the times it just fell flat, which it has
totally.
many, many times when I
I do. I
take
think
these
that
changes. Well, that's what I've seen you. I've seen you at a couple conventions get up and do some things. And it's always off the wall and a one off kind of thing. I don't think I've ever seen you do a rehearsed piece. I
oh
don't
well,
think.
uh, I get. I
Maybe you
don't know if you
have,
were
and I
there.
just don't see you enough.
No, I put together about an hour of material that I was doing for a few years that I ran in New York for a
Okay.
while. I did it in Chicago. I did it in London. Josh and Andy had me come out to London and do it, and I did it in Columbus one year. But maybe you weren't there that
I
night.
wasn't there, yeah.
It was great, and everybody loves it. It, it was a lot of fun. It's now I've learned a lot from doing that. I'm an amateur, right? I don't make my living doing magic, so I get the extreme luxury of saying, you know what, I'm going to start from scratch again and
Yeah.
build up a
Start
new show.
over, pull it out, root and branch, and
Yep. So that's what I'm in right now is I'm building up to a new hour,
oh
and that means
wow.
I got to sort of start from scratch. I'm taking a couple pieces from the old show and putting him into this new thing. But I absolutely subscribe to the controlled chaos
Yeah.
theory, and I love, especially with magic in comedy. It's always fun to see like the high status idiot at the very edge of their ability, like just pushing it
Right.
so they're just
Yeah,
right. Like
exactly.
that's a funny place to play as a character. And with magic, it's so much funnier because you're like, there's no way he can pull this off, right? It's supposed to go in this very
Yeah.
special way. And so when it does, it's like the tornado comes by and just like,
Yeah.
swirls the hot cocoa and then leaves and it's just a perfect sip. It's it feels more magical to me,
Well, that's
like
the grand
really
deception
sort
to
of
me. It's like this idiot. What can, is there anything going to come of this nonsense? It's just all
right,
foolishness.
right.
But wait a minute. What the hell just happened? How did that?
Exactly. And I think it also gives you the ability to sort of
And
look at
they can see the intelligence inside the clown eventually.
maybe, but
You know.
I love the idea of taking it off of you and you just like, what is what
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
And I see you do that a lot too. And I definitely have taken some heavy inspiration from those sorts of
Oh, well, that's so
reactions.
nice of you. That's why. That's why we're
Um,
doing this, so you can praise me.
that's
Um,
right. That's right.
all right. I
Yeah.
want to talk next. I want to talk
What
about.
is this, by the way? What are we doing
I
right
don't
now?
know. I don't know what this is. I started talking to friends online,
Yeah.
uh, and I go, oh, let me. I don't want to go through the whole story. Anybody who's watching this already, they've heard me say it.
But
Kalush called me when the quarantine started. And he goes, "You're going to do online Conjuring Arts University this year. I've been asking for 7 years, and you always say no." Because
cool.
I was like, "What am I
So
going to
this is
teach? I'm
so
not a
this is part
teacher."
of your renaissance as a
Yes,
teacher.
teacher. So it's all Bill Kalush, my buddy Bill. I've known him since we were 16 when he was chubby, and he thought I ignored him at the Pittsburgh IBM convention. We go way back. But he's one of my best old buddies of magic. So he called me finally. He goes, "You're doing this, Willie?" And I go, "No, I'm not." My idea of teaching somebody magic, because people go, "Do you give private lessons?" For many years, many decades, people ask me. I go, "Yeah, here's your first lesson. Read this book, call me in 20 years." That's my lesson, you know.
Yeah,
And that's what
yeah.
I thought it was, because I was like, I like lecturing because it's about me, and look at this other idea I had, and it's a
Right, right.
performance.
Nobody,
But sitting,
nobody that I perform for will appreciate this, but you
yeah,
guys.
exactly right. Yeah.
I put the
So
finger.
lecturing's a
It goes
pure
like,
ego trip.
yeah.
Lecturing's fun. It's just like a
Hold it like
uncritical. Yeah,
this,
yeah,
and then
yeah. The
yeah.
best magic lecture I ever saw was Levent, because you know how we always, you know, you're explaining. You take 20 minutes to explain what they can see. You know,
Right.
hold it, put the finger underneath. Yeah, I can see that. You don't have to say put the finger underneath. You're putting your finger underneath. But Levent gave a lecture on rings and balls and stuff. He had a PowerPoint. I've never seen anybody do this, and you know how fast he is anyway, right? He goes, then you hold the ball like this, and it's a close-up. So you're in a room, but there's a close-up. You're not looking at a guy from across the ballroom.
Right, right.
It's a close-up. It goes here from the other side. Here it is from the front again, and then you move your finger like this, and then he's clicking, 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 clicking. And here's a video of it, boom. And this is from my point of view, boom. And it was the whole lecture was like that. It was like information just sucking into your brain. And he got through so much material, and you could see it from all angles. Like, why isn't everybody doing that? It's genius. But anyway.
Were you there? Were you there when Jan Frisch lectured at the Magi Fest a couple of years
No.
back? That was stupendous.
I
That
bet.
was really, really memorable because he shows you all these sequences he didn't use and all these the command he has with that sitting at that table and those cups and
So great.
he explains the whole act and all these addendums and all these variations, and then that same night he went and performed and fooled everyone again. And
Yeah, of course, because it all works. We were in Blackpool together, Jan Frisch, and we were talking, and another Jan Frisch walks by, and we both went, "What the?" This guy was wearing a white shirt like him, like a white button down, had the beard, the same length hair. He was his twin brother, and we were like, "What the?" And so he ran and got the guy, and for his act the next night, he's on stage at the Winter Garden. Have you done Blackpool?
Yeah.
Yeah, that huge theater they're in, the 5,000 seat theater, whatever it is. So he's doing his act on stage with video and so forth. But at one point, he falls on the floor and they drag him off all the way. And it's not like a double thing where the head has to be away from them. His head is towards them, right? And they pulling Jan Frisch off the stage, a stagehand. And, you know, on that stage, it's 20 feet in either direction or more if you're a center stage. It's one of the biggest stages in Europe, you know. Goes all the way off stage, dragging Jan on the floor. The lights blink off and on, and he's back at the table like this. And everybody went, "What?" Because we told this guy, don't walk around the convention for like at least one day. Stay in your room, we'll pay you, we'll feed you, we'll bring you food. And then used him for that switch. It was one of the great, but if they would have messed up that timing of the thing, you know, if they would have seen Jan come up, it wouldn't have worked. But it was the time, it was just such a great moment.
That's the thing about magic is it's this delicate bubble and anything can pop it and it's gone and then it's not there.
Yeah.
It's a binary, right? It's either magic or it's not. There's no it's kind of magical, right?
But in Jan's act, it was the perfect gag. It was the perfect piece. Anybody else having a double back there, it would have been a good gag, but it wouldn't have been. It was perfect for what he does. Anyway, so I love Jan Frisch.
I love that too. I like the idea that you're now the teacher, that you're the professor.
Well, I'm not the teacher. I'm not the no.
The archetype, not the end all be all. But
you know what you said you quarantined. You started a book club, right? So anyway, I started doing these classes for Kalush, and after the first one, I was like, I don't want to stop. Right. I don't know. This is so great.
That's what I mean.
I'm pulling my library down. I'm going references, and I'm going on Ask Alexander, and
I love
people come.
That.
And this guy's 70-year-old veterinarian who goes, I was always too shy to raise my hand and ask what an Elmsley count was. So we spend an hour, we do that. And then it's somebody else preparing to go on Penn and Teller. You have ideas for a better force that might fool them. And let's talk about narrative, and let's talk about the structure, and let's talk about, and we rewrite guys' shows and everything in between. And when we go deep dive on the 10-card trick from Greater Magic and, whatever it is. And then we get together once a week for little jam sessions and once a month for jam sessions. So I have this little community that's building of like-minded people, and it's like, wow, I'm absolutely loving it, and I'm loving being home because when you do magic for a living, I've been traveling for 20 years and rarely home, so it's just what I'm doing now, and I'm absolutely reconnecting with the art of magic and the hobby side of magic again.
But I just think
this is all part of this to answer your question. So there's couple hundred people who are going to watch this and go, I don't know Adam Rubin. I'm going to look into him some more.
Yeah.
Maybe he can come to one of our
Buy my new book.
Yeah. Wait. Let's talk
October
about your book.
26th.
You finally put magic. So that's what I want to talk to you about next.
Yeah, so
You are an author of children's books.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that your third book or your fourth?
This is my 12th book.
How did those other 10 get in there without me knowing?
I don't know. Dave, you're not exactly the demographic for these
You
books.
just churn. Well, it's my reading level. Do you churn these things out? I was like, oh, it's so easy for you now.
Well, it's been.
Do you stick with a different illustrator, or do you stick with the same illustrator? Do you have a different one, or does the publisher assign them, or is it all your friends, or what?
Well, I choose the illustrators generally, which is not the norm for picture books. Normally, the publisher would choose, but I don't like working that way. I prefer to collaborate with someone than just hand it off and then who knows what the hell happens.
I love children's books. I mean, it's a whole art form in and of itself, as you know, as a writer of them, because I have children and I grew up reading like Dogzilla and all these fabulous Goodnight Moon and just these poetic, wonderful, heartfelt. But it's only a few words. It's like haiku, communicate these wonderful ideas, and the illustration fills it out. It's so fantastic. So my question is, when you submit your children's book, is it like on a playing card? Do you have like 12 words in the whole book? Are you one of those guys?
I mean, mine have
ripped off. Okay, you got a couple paragraphs. I always felt like ripped off.
You know, I love that paper engineering bullshit. And so the cover comes off and folds up into an addressed envelope that they can put their
No way! Oh,